Coming on the air because music legend Dolly Parton is dead at the age of 80. She was one of the most unifying forces in American culture, a celebrity for more than 50 years.
She once said the secret to her whole career was simple: work hard, know who you are, and never let anyone talk you out of being exactly that. For 80 years, Dolly Parton did precisely that. And on August 25, 2026, the world lost one of the only entertainers in modern history who was loved, without irony or exception, by almost everyone who ever heard her sing. Her family confirmed she died peacefully in Nashville after a brief battle with cancer, surrounded by the people who loved her most. What follows isn't a story about how she died. It's a story about how she lived, and why. When the news broke, flags were lowered across the country, the Empire State Building turned pink, and millions of people who never met her felt like they'd lost family. To understand why Dolly Parton's death hit so many people so hard, you have to go back to where she started, because almost nothing about her life makes sense without it. She was born on January 19, 1946, in a one-room cabin in the Great Smoky Mountains of East Tennessee, the fourth of 12 children born to Robert Lee Parton and Ovie Lee Parton. There was no electricity, no running water. Her father couldn't read or write, though Dolly would spend her whole life insisting he was one of the smartest people she ever knew, especially when it came to business, a trait she clearly inherited. Her mother was the one who filled the house with music, singing old ballads and hymns and telling stories, because in a home with almost no money, imagination was the one thing that was free. Dolly started writing songs before she'd even started school. Historians and archivists at the Library of Congress trace her earliest known composition, Little Tiny Tassel Top, back to around 1951, when she was about 5 years old. She sang in the Pentecostal church her family attended, taught herself to make music out of whatever was lying around the house, and eventually got her hands on a real guitar at around age 8. By 10, she was already performing on local television and radio in Knoxville. She cut her first record, Puppy Love, when she was still a child, and at 13, she made her first appearance on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, introduced by Johnny Cash himself. Most people would call that the peak of her childhood. Dolly treated it as the starting line. The day after she graduated high school in 1964, the first person in her family to do so, she got on a bus for Nashville. She has told the story so many times it became part of her mythology. A poor girl from the mountains, arriving in the capital of country music with a cardboard suitcase and absolute certainty that she belonged there. Nashville did not make it easy. The industry in the 1960s was run almost entirely by men who had firm ideas about what a young woman singer should sound like, look like, and sing about. Dolly pushed back against all of it, quietly and then not so quietly, and never stopped writing. Her big break came in 1967, when she joined the Porter Wagoner Show. Wagoner was already one of the biggest stars in country music, and his nationally syndicated television program gave Dolly something she couldn't have built alone at anywhere near the same speed: a national audience. But even during those years working under someone else's spotlight, Dolly was never just a singer performing other people's material. She wrote constantly, obsessively, turning her own life into songs the way other people keep a diary. In 1972 alone, she wrote 2 of the songs that would eventually define her entire career, Jolene and I Will Always Love You. Dolly told the story of that writing period differently over the years, sometimes saying both songs came out of the same extraordinary stretch, later softening that to admit she couldn't be certain they were written on literally the same night. Either way, both songs would go on to live far beyond her original recordings of them. I Will Always Love You became a generational hit twice over, once for Dolly and once, decades later, for Whitney Houston. She didn't stop at music. In 1980, she starred alongside Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin in 9 to 5, a workplace comedy that became a massive box office hit and an anthem for working women, with Dolly's title song becoming a hit of its own. She followed that with more film roles in The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas and Steel Magnolias, proving that the girl from the mountain cabin could hold her own against Hollywood's best. Then she built something even bigger than a filmography. In 1986, she partnered with the Hershon family to transform an existing Ozark-style park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, into Dollywood, bringing her name, her money, and her influence directly back to the region she'd grown up poor in. It wasn't a vanity project. It became one of the largest employers in that part of Tennessee and turned Dolly into a businesswoman on top of everything else she already was. But if you ask people who study her career what she'll actually be remembered for a century from now, many of them won't point to a